Riley with TestGeek Exam Prep, LLC. We're going to take a look at the Securities Industry Essentials exam, FINRA's brand new exam as of October 1st, 2018. First of all, however, when I go through each video course, I always like to start with how best to study and pass your FINRA and or any other of your licensing exams. I like to tell the story that when I first got hired in a small brokerage firm in Portland, Oregon, many, many years ago, the boss says, "Welcome to the team. Here, read this," and shoves a 700-page textbook in front of me, and that's all I had. And he says, "Read this, take a test." That was pre-internet days, of course, not to want to date myself, but at that point in time, I took that textbook, I read it cover to cover 3 times. The third time through it, I actually wrote notes on each chapter as I was reading through it. And I swear to this day that writing those notes out for me is essentially the only thing that got me past that exam. I didn't have any practice questions, no online questions, of course, no class. All I had was that textbook. Now, days have changed, of course. You have so many more tools available to help you pass these exams. So let me show you the best course of action, I think, anyway, in passing your SIE or any other licensing exam. Okay? So, step 1, how to pass. Okay? Now, I am a big believer of reading that material. And I know that some folks have some troubles sometimes with that, reading the text. And that's why a lot of the publishers nowadays include, along with their text, a video series as well for each of those units. Now, TestGeek Exam Prep does not provide textbooks. That's not what we do. I will explain precisely what exactly our role in this is. I don't really want to compete with all of the large textbook publishers. Besides, I don't feel like writing a 700-page textbook. Anyway, so once you get that textbook, you want to, instead of reading it cover to cover, which you can probably imagine, how much of that content are you actually going to retain? It's highly technical. A lot of us here may be coming from some other industry, unfamiliar with finance, financial advising, brokerage firms, or you might not have any experience whatsoever in the industry. So you have to get used to all of that vocabulary. The only way, the best way to do that, of course, is to plow through these textbooks. Now, instead of cover to cover, you might want to do it chapter by chapter, or unit by unit, however it's broken up. Some of the textbook publishers, of course, they organize their textbooks in completely different ways. Kaplan, STC, Past Perfect, training consultants, test teachers, there's quite a few of them out there. The oldest ones, the ones that have been most established, been around the longest, are the Kaplan and STC. I often get emails from people, "Brian, who do you think would be the best person or the best textbook provider?" Any of them, they all have their advantages and disadvantages, and I'll talk about that throughout the course. Kaplan and STC, as I've mentioned, are the oldest. They've been around. They're the most established. For me, the ones that I like the most are the ones that have the practice questions that are more closely aligned with what you're going to see on the test. Okay? Kaplan probably has the largest array of practice questions, probably the best written. STC probably has the best written textbook. Their test questions are fairly decent as well. But Kaplan, the way in which they have arranged their practice questions, I think is one of the best in the industry. So anyway, those are several of the textbook publishers that you can go out there and find. Now, I'm going to remain textbook neutral because for me, that's not my role. My role is to get you past the exam. What I care about is what you actually see on the test, how it's worded on the test, and how you should answer it on the test. That's what I concern myself with. And I'll show you how all that works, okay? However, you need to build that foundation for these concepts. You got to understand the vocabulary. You got to start recognizing some of these things, and the textbook is the best place to do that, okay? So instead of going cover to cover, do it chapter by chapter, right? So you read the textbook, Unit 1 or Chapter 1, watch their videos if they have one, those kind of things, okay? Now, once you've completed that, then you go into the practice questions and do approximately 20 questions on that unit alone. 20 questions, no more than that. You don't need any more than that, okay? Then, of course, same thing. Read, watch the videos on Unit 2. Approximately 20 questions on Unit 2 as well, okay? If it's 15 questions, that's okay too. But now, what you'd like to do is 20 questions on both Units 1 and 2 combined. That way, not only are we building our knowledge, but we're also retaining what we've already seen. Okay? Then you just repeat that with Chapter 3, approximately 20 questions on Unit 3 alone, and then let's say 30 questions on Units 1 through 3 cumulatively. So you're building and reinforcing, building and reinforcing. And you just repeat that process all the way through, right? Chapter 4, 20 questions, and then maybe 40 questions on Units 1 through 4 combined. So you start small, and you build and reinforce as you go. Okay? So you start at the bottom of the pyramid, what I call the inverted pyramid. That way you build and reinforce, build and reinforce. Many of us, again, like I did many years ago, you get this textbook, the boss says, here's the textbook, good luck. And you're not given really a whole lot of guidance with some of this stuff. So this is the best way, I think, to conquer all of that content. Okay? Now, here's what I do. Once you've gotten through that material, okay, then you want to take a class. And that's where TestGeek exam prep comes in. Okay? This way, what we like to do is to concentrate solely on what I refer to as the test world, right? What shows up on the test, how it most likely shows up on the test, and how you should answer it on the test. For any of you that may have some industry experience, I may suggest you don't really want to compare what you see on these exams to what you do on an everyday basis. Because what you do in your office might not be the same thing that Sally or Bill does in their office. So it's not really meant to simulate the real world, what you do in your office. So again, we want to focus solely on what is on the test, how it shows up on the test, and how you should answer it on the test. Okay? Now, there's a path of least resistance in this world. And it begins with keep it simple. Seattle? Or whatever word you want to throw in there. The more you think, the more you sink. Paralysis by analysis. When's the last time you've seen a standardized multiple choice exam? They all have a set structure to them. Okay? It's a linear structure. The easiest way to explain a linear test structure is simply say 2 plus 2 equals 4. That's how all multiple choice exams are structured. Now, good news, bad news. The majority of us are linear thinkers. We tend to be visual, linear thinkers. But not all of us are. Okay? Doesn't matter. Knowing that it is a linear progression should help you whether you are a linear thinker or not. Now, the problem with this, the bad news is, the key variables are often disguised in superfluous, distracting material. Okay? They may mention 2 plus 2, of course, but they'll throw in some other things in there to distract you away from that. And see, if you tend to be overly meticulous, if you tend to overanalyze, you're going to see a whole lot of this other noise without recognizing that the key variables are 2 plus 2. Okay? That's one of our challenges. Here's the second challenge. One of the answer choices might say 4, except during months when there's 2 full moons in months ending in the letter R, which kind of sounds attractive to your rational brain. It makes sense. It's reasonable. Okay? Another answer choice might say 31. Right? Another answer choice might say 63. One answer choice might say the square root of 16. Okay? So, almost every multiple choice exam, you can fairly readily eliminate 2 of the 4 choices. Okay? But then the last 2 get pretty close. I know some exams where people come out there and they swear half the exam had test questions with 2 right answers. Okay? Now, of course, again, check this out, right? What's your brain looking for when you see 2 plus 2? 4, right? And there's an answer choice that has 4 in it, along with this qualifier of some sort that sounds very reasonable. And then an answer choice that's not so familiar, okay? Which, of course, as this goes, that's the correct answer. Okay? There are no qualifiers to 2 plus 2. It's always 4, right? And that's what you got to remind yourself. Don't overthink this stuff. Don't overanalyze it. There are answer choices and terms that are attracting your reasonable, rational mind, distracting you away from the true, simple answer. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you, because it can be easily done. Okay? You know, you throw test anxiety in there and all sorts of other things to distract you away from this, right? Again, we all have some degree of test anxiety. All of us do. Some more than others, some less than others. I've always been a relatively pretty good test taker. I'm a linear thinker. I can see through a lot of that noise. Okay? Now, if you have a high degree of test anxiety, don't try to avoid it, because you've had it all your life. It's not going to get cured overnight. What you have to learn is how to work with it. And this is really what you do, right? You see these rational answer choices that attract your reasonable, rational brain, and you start doubting yourself. Stay with what you know. Keep it simple. Okay? We'll have some other tips as we go through this as well. Okay? But that's where it begins. That's what we're going to concentrate on in our video course, right? What's on the test, how it shows up on the test, and how you should answer it on the test. Okay? So that's really the second facet on how to pass these exams. First, you got to plow through that material the best you can, okay? And then what we're going to do is consolidate that information to what is most testable, and how, of course, it's testable. The third facet to this, then, are practice finals, practice exams, whatever you want to call them. All the major publishers, Kaplan, STC, Pass Perfect, they all have a large string of practice exams and practice finals and all sorts of things. The video course, of course, also has a downloadable practice final for you as well. Okay? So what you want to do is go through this thing and simulate the test-taking environment the best the law allows. I say that because no one, including TestGeek, is allowed to duplicate the actual test questions. These exams are copyrighted material. When you sign up for your exams, you often will sign an attestation saying that you'll never reveal anything you see, right, in order to maintain the integrity of the exam. So anyway, these exams, although their correlation factors are pretty good, typically, they vary from exam to exam, but they're pretty good. They're pretty close, most of them. Okay? So you want to simulate the test-taking environment the best the law allows. Now, most of them will allow you to take the exam, right? It will score it for you electronically, and then hopefully they will then break that score out into the different components of the exam. That way you can find which areas are your weakest. And then, find that weak area, go into the textbook again, do some practice questions on that area specifically. Or, right, rewind, get into the class where that concept is actually taken to, again, reinforce and bump up that area. Then, of course, you take another one. It will score it, break the score out, find the weak areas, ramp up on that. Okay? These three facets is what is absolutely necessary. There's really no shortcuts to this, right? You got to plow through the material, then concentrate the material to what the test most likely will have, and then simulate the actual exam. Okay? That's the three facets that you want to go through. Now, let's talk about the SIE specifically. It does have, in fact, 4 content areas. You'll have 75 questions that are graded, but you will actually answer 85. They always throw experimental questions, beta questions that they're testing. You don't know which ones they are. They are randomly dispersed throughout the test. Okay? So you will actually answer 85 questions. You have 1 hour and 45 minutes. My goodness, that's an awful long time for just 85 questions. That time, most of the time on all these exams should be plenty. If it takes you that long to go through 85 questions, that often is an indicator that things aren't quite right. Okay? And of course, you'll be able to practice that anyway. Okay? Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you you can't pass if it takes you that long. Okay? Obviously, people do. But the pass rate's not very good. Okay? And it probably means you're overthinking and overanalyzing these things. Okay? 1 hour and 45 minutes should be more than enough time to get through these 85 questions. Okay? Now, again, like I said, FINRA has divided the concepts into 4 different areas. Again, the questions are going to be random. Okay? The first area is the knowledge of capital markets. Ooh, doesn't that sound fancy schmancy? Right? But there's only 12 questions in it. Okay? The next area are actual securities products, their risks, and that's it, I believe, 33 questions. It is the single largest area of the exam. If you want an area to concentrate on for the exam, that's the one, the products and the risks. You'll get questions on common stock, preferred stock, corporate bonds, municipal bonds, government securities, options, everybody's favorite product, and of course, a few questions along with their risks. Okay? The third area, trading, that basically means placing customers' orders, customers' accounts, and prohibited practices, prohibited activities. And there are 23 questions in that area. And then the last one is a regulatory overview, is what they call it. We'll take a look at it. It's not too difficult, actually. And there are only 7 questions in there. Okay? So 12, 33, 23, 7 should add up to 75. Of those 75 graded questions, you must answer any 53 of them correctly. Right? That's a 70% is our passing score. Okay? Now, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll start it plowing into some of this content. I'll see you real soon.